Hey guys, it's Matt. About once a quarter, I like to pop in and contribute to those that do the impossible architecture research and the research on the World's Fair. It's just my little contribution to the cause. Pop in about once a quarter, 4 times a year. I don't invade their turf, but every so often I think I have something to contribute. And this is, what do we look at? That little shit-ass town in Bismarck, North Dakota, last time we looked at? Well, this is Troy, New York. You won't believe the stuff that I came across here. And it's not just the images. It leads to where it always leads. It's basically a mini reality breakdown. Well, Matt, you're going to take it there again, Matt? Yeah, that's that. I'm not taking it there. That's where the reality itself leads anybody that wants to pay a little bit of attention. It's not me doing it. You know, I'm just noticing it. So, guys, before we get into this, just a few things before I start. There is a foul language warning. Foul language warning in this video. The mood I'm in is strange. It's rare. A lot of you are in a rare mood too. And I'm just going to do it. You know, it's not going to be like a Richard Pryor stand-up with just every other word, you know, like Chris Rock. And it's not going to be like that. Just some bad language might pop up, okay? It's just the mood I'm in. Send the kids to bed. Kiddies don't need to see this. You know, send them to bed. Have them finish their dinner. No dessert, no pudding. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? That's the guy screaming at the end of the most famous Pink Floyd song. You know, we don't need no education. That's what this video is about. Education in Troy, New York. Troy University. Troy, you'd be like, Troy University? Never heard of that. Never put that on no 60-14 bracket. That's the kind of the point too. So it's not just about the pictures. You'll see where this shit leads. Okay? So foul language warning. Okay? That's like a bright boy alert from True Lies. I repeat this, a bright boy alert. That's what it is. A foul language warning. True Lies. There's a truth drop right in the name of the movie with Jamie Lee Curtis and Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a truth drop. True Lies. It's both at the same time. So let's start. It says, Troy University from the Southwest. Edwin Emerson in the foreground, attributed to Edwin Emerson, April 25th, 1862. What the hell is that? What is that? Okay, Troy University, 1862. So they built this castle-like structure, guys. Then the story. Wait till the story starts to develop. It's not just about these Zabruta pictures. Wait till the story. It's incredible. Okay. 1862, they built this castle-like structure, once again, like out in the middle of nowhere. There's Edwin Emerson looking at it going, they ain't going to get no enrollment in that university. Who's going to go there? I don't know what this guy's waiting for. It looks like Hogwarts. It looks like Hogwarts. He's waiting for a Quidditch tournament. He's waiting for Harry Potter to fly in on his Nimbus 2000 as the Seeker or something. I mean, who is this guy, Edwin Emerson? It says attributed to Edwin Emerson, and he's also in the picture. Well, how's that? There ain't no remote control pictures back then, was there? I thought Polaroid came up with that in like 65. How's he in his own picture? It's a reality breakdown right there. But I'm just kidding. I don't know. But what's a reality breakdown is the gigantic castle-like structure built to be Troy University in the 1860s. Again, as I'll remind you, and all the impossible architecture people remind us, and the World's Fair researchers remind us, they ain't got no portable diesel motors. They ain't got no electricity. They got donkeys, jackasses, mules, ropes, chisels, and hammers, and a few horses. A few horses, not of the thoroughbred type, of the plow horses, a little bit better than donkeys and jackasses. That's what they built that with. He's there looking at it, waiting for the Quidditch to start, and wait till the story develops. I got one other picture here, guys, of this, and here it is from the town itself. Look at this. I mean, look at this thing. This imposing. Now, guys, this is far away. All the way up the hill here. It looks like you put 4 football fields between the little town of Troy at the time and Troy University. I mean, look at this imposing thing up on the hill. It's like Shawshank on steroids times 1,000. People down here, it would just make you uneasy. This guy going into someone's mad. There's nobody on the streets. I'm not going to go into that. That's, where people go in to do the mud flood research or whatever. I don't understand the exposures of these cameras and if people could walk by and not be picked up because there's motion. I don't know. I think there's a whole inherited town. There's nobody on this. I'm not going to go there. Okay. There's a lot of research you can do that shows Troy, New York was, thousands and thousands of people, and you see in different pictures through 1800s into 1900 for Troy, New York. I'm just saying, let's just stay concentrated on the structure. Well, what is this huge imposing thing? You got a guy coming out of the dry goods over here, and then going in over here. You just want to go into the general store and maybe up the street to the bar. You got Wyatt Earp in here throwing fat Billy Bob Thornton out on his ass. And it just to have that building like imposing off in your peripheral vision is like creepy. It's like a spaceship, like a giant pyramid that landed in Stargate or something. I didn't spend hours and hours, but just using a lot of different types of Google searches and Google images, there's not a lot of pictures of this building. It just doesn't make any sense. The Wikipedia says it was torn down as late as 1960 or something. We'll look at that. There should be hundreds of pictures of this building inside and out. So this is what's on the Wikipedia. It looks like a postcard from a distance. We have this, which is one of the few we have with the huge imposing building, again, over Troy. And yes, it does, towers to the domes. It does look like domes, same old free energy theme, but that's not my thing. I'm just noting it. If this building was that impressive, there should be, it doesn't say it was torn down when the university closed in 1862. You have this. Where are the hundreds of pictures that should exist? They just don't. And it also gets muddied because there's a Troy University in, I believe today in Alabama. So you get a lot of that. This isn't the the Pyrotechnic Institute, or the Polytechnic Institute. But check this out. I think this picture down here is associated with, I believe, Troy in Alabama. Whatever it is, it's the same theme. I just kind of stumbled upon it. A gigantic structure with a dome, and this isn't a Capitol building or anything like that, and just, people mulling around on their horses. And again, it's the same, reality breakdown theme over and over and over. Okay, let's move on to another element of reality ridiculousness, which comes through the story behind all this. So check it out. Troy University, New York. Troy University was a short-lived university established at Troy, New York in 1858 under the auspices of the Methodist Episcopal Church. The school closed in 1861. What? Record scratch? 1858 to 1861. The building that housed the university remained a prominent Troy landmark until 1969. How's that possible if we don't have hundreds upon hundreds of pictures of that building? But here's the key. On the site now is the I'm gonna butcher this, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, the Folsom Library of the Polytechnic Institute, which is a very well-respected 4-year degree, master's, PhD, whatever, Polytechnic Institute. I'm just going to call it RPI. We'll look at the RPI campus in a moment. Let's go back to this. 4 years. You're telling me, what? You're telling me that this is okay. Let's better to go back here. 4 years, it was open. This guy's like, I told you weren't going to get no enrollment. 1858 to 1862, then it closed. Hogwarts closed. Sent all those muggles home. What? Come on, man. Who the heck would believe that? What's this? This guy is, maybe he's one of the original donors and benefactor. I know he's the photographer. Just go with it. So the people that did raise the money, if the story's legitimate, well, they say, well, if we can get 4 years out of the university, that's good enough. That's good enough. Cambridge and Harvard and these universities, they only get 10, 12 years, before they got to close. So if we get 4 years, it's good enough. We get one class through, bring in Harry Potter in ninth grade, and we can get him out, graduated as a senior, get him his Tin Man diploma, which ain't where it's the Scarecrow diploma, ain't worth shit. And we can get Thornton Mellon in as back to school to give the closing address, as an honorary degree to Thornton Mellon. 4 years. If we get 4 years, fuck it. Yeah, it's good enough. It's good. 4 years. Okay. Now here's that's a little bit of a problem, would you say? That part of the story. But here's the other problem. This is the RPI, Polytechnic Institute, on the site of where Troy University and that building stood. And it's a real campus here, some impressive buildings. I'm sure it has a good reputation. These are the dorms, a nice college lifestyle. I mean, it's a real university here. So, you know what most universities, they like to base their whole university around the marquee building. Like Penn State has its old main, with huge columns, and everything is based around that. So one would think, why wouldn't, the institute here, trying to attract students from all over the world, why wouldn't they keep the building of, if they kept it, the spires were taken down. And again, I don't see any domes in this picture. We saw domes in the other picture. It's just strange. Why wouldn't the institute keep the building? And, they certainly didn't keep the building intact with the spires or anything like that. But it's just strange, okay? Because universities like to surround themselves with marquee buildings. So let's go back to the Wikipedia here. All right, 4 years. Yeah, and then just closed. We tried our best. Fuck it. Close it. All right. There were initial plans for the founding of a college in Troy in 1853. The original plan was for a 4-year Hogwarts-style college course. In addition, blah, blah, blah. University opened for students on September 9th, 1858. And the institution remained open for about 3 years. I didn't even get a graduating class out of that thing. On representations made on the Board of Regents by the president of the Board of Trustees, who was assigned to the provost, whatever that is, by the acting president of the faculty, the charter of Troy University was made absolute March 18th, 1861. Absolute, as in the vodka? What does that mean? Troy University was considered firmly established enough to allow for the 1859 creation of, they created a frat. The Delta House was created before it went under. Kappa Phi, that was a good investment. Get involved in Troy, Kappa Phi. The Delta House was probably there too. Have a brew. Don't cost nothing. The administration of the university raised funds by selling scholarships, which were a right to attend in the future based on a current dollar amount. Oh, that's a good investment. The thing was only open for 3 fucking years. They approached all the babies, all the newborns of King Ramses, and they said, you can buy these, and then when your baby grows up to be cowboys, you can go to the university. You won't be fucking there after 3 years. That's what a Ponzi, what a Bernie Madoff scheme that is. Apparently, the inflationary period of the 1860s destroyed the financial stability of the university. Oh, of course it did. Oh, well, what would one think? One would conclude by reading that, well, then half the universities across the U.S. must have all been wiped out. MIT, Harvard, Yale, University of Penn State, Alabama, Michigan State, Stanford. Well, maybe Stanford wasn't quite established, but, we didn't make it out west that far yet. The University of Virginia, James Madison. Half of them must have been wiped the fuck out. Apparently, they had to put it in there. Nobody fucking knows. Apparently, the inflationary period of the early 60s, what was it, Weimar? Weimar Republic? How much money you got in that dumpster? Was that enough to get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I don't know. But then in Weimar, they told you by the time you were done with your fucking peanut butter and jelly, you needed 2 dumpsters full of. That's a bunch of bullshit, too. I'm sure there was inflation in Weimar, but these stories about dumpsters to get a piece of bread, where do you even get that much cash? I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry to stray into Weimar, into Wiener Schnitzel. Sometime in 1862, the property's mortgage was foreclosed upon. Oh, maybe it was Jeremy Busfield or whatever, Timothy Busfield in what was it, Kevin Costner in If You Build It, They Will Come, The Mandela Effect, He Will Come, Field of Dreams. It's the ghost of Timothy Busfield's grandfather showed up to foreclose on this place, and the site was purchased by St. Mary's Church of Albany. Oh yeah, yeah, little old St. Mary's Church. Would you like to buy a? I'm here. Who's the financial representative for St. Mary's Church? I'd like to speak to him or her. Oh yes. Would you like to buy a castle? Well, I don't think we can afford that. It's real cheap. All right, just push your donations when you send your buckets and tins and hats around for collections. Just push the congregation a little bit hard on Sunday, and trust me, you can afford this castle. We'll have the haircutting guys from Coming to America show up, and it's like collections. We'd appreciate a donation we appreciate the donations that jingled, but we really would like a donation for this castle for St. Mary's that folds. It's donations. I thought it was a trash. No, see, St. Mary's just was able to buy the castle. That makes perfect sense. You just go hardcore pipe hitting on your ability to get donations as you pass that thing around. Bring in Vin Rames as your business partner, Marcellus Wallace, and have him walk up and down the pews with a big pipe in his hand, and you'll get the donations you need for that thing. So the huge 4-story building. Wait, let's go back. I don't want to miss any part of this. This is just too good. The Catholic Church maintained a seminary on the grounds known as St. Joseph's Theological Seminary of the province of New York. Okay, in 1896, it became a scholasticate. What the frick's a scholasticate of the Christian Brothers? Christian Brothers. What? That's like isn't that a whiskey? What the hell's that? The remaining 13 students of Troy University, that's all they got enrolled? I was kidding earlier. They were admitted to the degree of Bachelor of Arts at Wesleyan University. Wesleyan, wow. Let me tell you, Wesleyan and Vassar, these are the two little prick-ass schools that believe they are the Ivy League, and in their little Eyes Wide Shut party circles, they're considered to be the Ivy League. So that's not a bad deal, actually. If you went to Troy University and they had to close their doors on your broke ass, and then you got a degree just because they felt sorry for you from Wesleyan, that's pretty damn good. Trust me, guys. Wesleyan and Vassar, like Bard College. They're just little Ivy Leagues that nobody's ever heard of, but in certain Eyes Wide Shut party circles, it's very impressive to have a Wesleyan or Vassar degree or Bard College. Bard College is the liberal birthplace of all liberal hellhole policies that eventually make their way into Washington, D.C. St. Joseph's Seminary trained hundreds of priests until it closed during the 1890s. The building was subsequently used for a variety of purposes, including housing orphans. Now, here we go again. See, I'm not pointing to the same conspiracy with the orphan trains and all this. What I point to, guys, what I like to point out is the repeating scripts that run through a fake world. Okay, we have the repeating themes, the repeating scripts over and over and over. Puss is trying to push onto my lap. No, Puss. No. She doesn't get it like Zara. She just takes a while to push her away. All right. So it's the same. Here we go again. No, Puss. The same themes. Orphans. Okay. The huge 4-story building with its 4 tall spires and Byzantine architecture was an imposing feature of the Troy skyline. You think? Until it was razed in 1969. Razed. I guess that means destroyed. But if it was raised in Bryan Adams' summer of 69, where's the fucking 400 pictures that should exist? Even if a brooder passing by would have stopped it. Honey, pull the car over. I gotta get some pictures of this place. The building was purchased by RPI, the Polytechnic Institute, in 1958 and was renamed at the time University Building. What? That's the name wait. First off, why are they purchasing the building in 1958? So this is my understanding, guys. The site of RPI, Polytechnic Institute, Pyrotechnic Institute for Fireworks, is on the exact site that Troy University was on. The Troy University was only open for like 3 years. And they were established, RPI, in the 1820s. So this gigantic old building, you're on the same site why did it take until 1958 to purchase the building? And why would you purchase it in 1958 only to have it taken down in Bryan Adams' summer of 1969? Who owned it from the day it went out of business until then, 1958? What was it even doing? Just in the middle of your RPI campus, you just don't mind this old castle, just walk around it for extra exercise or something. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Well, who owned it? Maybe the Japanese Keiretsus owned it, and that's where they were keeping, you saw the apartment building there where they kept the women in Rising Sun. Maybe that's what they were using it for. Why did it take until 1958? If you're going to buy the damn thing, well, I guess, Matt, remember St. Mary's had bought it, but there's a big hole in the story here. Well, what did St. Mary's do with it? Whatever, I remember that part of the story, but obviously there's a big glaring hole here. And then why would you buy it if your RPI in 1958 just to, quote, raise it, about 10 years later? So the other thing, guys, I mean, just the fact that they, at the time, when they spent the money to make it part of the campus, you'd think that, one of the most amazing buildings in the history of North America and the United States, you would want to do something really special with the name. And they named it University Building. Yeah. We got one submission from they conducted an on-campus contest on naming the old ancient architecture building that we're so proud of that's now part of the RPI campus. And one submission from Forrest Gump, a University Building. So that's what we went with. So to finish here, guys, the School of Management and Public Relations Department and a portion of the Physics Department occupied the first 2 floors of the old building. Okay. The upper floors were closed off due to concerns of structural instability. Oh, they were dangerous. The upper floors were all closed off. So yeah, so RPI was probably just like every other university, just building out, spending millions of dollars on new dorms and new buildings, and just building out. Like all the universities are just making themselves bigger and bigger and more Jabba the Hutt fatter. But all those funds, none of those funds, I meant to say, could be used to actually help correct the structural instability problems in one of the neatest, probably oldest, coolest buildings in U.S. history. That just we can't put anybody up there. You could have a cinder block fall on your head. But we just put in a whole new natatorium, a swimming pool nobody uses. And we got to do that to keep up with the Joneses with these other universities. So it doesn't make any sense. The money would have been there too. And why would they want to have ever even taken down the building that should become the marquee of the whole RPI college presentation? Whatever. Okay, as usual, there's more than 1 or 2 holes in the story. It gets funny with this last part of the presentation. On the site where the incredible architecture was, surrounded by the RPI campus, they built, on the site after they cleared the space and got rid of that old piece of shit, they built the Folsom Library. Okay? It says it at the bottom here. The Folsom Library was constructed on the site in 1976. Let me show you what they put. Now, remember, okay, you got a sneak peek there. I was going to click on that. Remember how beautiful, incredible that old building was. Let's see what there's a lot of pressure to put something nice in its place. The Folsom Prison Library. This is the piece of shit they put on the exact site, according to the Wikipedia here, guys. Now, there's a section of this truth community that talks about they like to mock. And I always get on these people like, it's not all mockery, but you know what? I'll give you that. In some cases, it is mockery. Probably in this case. They built this piece of shit. A Borg cube has more stylish design than this piece of shit. The Folsom Library, right over where that beautiful building was. And why am I thinking Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison? Want to do another rendition of the virus keeps it coming. It's rolling around the bend. Now, I'm not going to do it, but I keep thinking, this is the Folsom Library. It's a Folsom Prison Library. Look at the thing. Remember they did the on-campus contest to name the old building before they tore it down, and they came up with University Building. Did they do another competition for architectural design for the library where it was an inverted competition where the worst design was put up into first place and the funds were endowed to build the thing? I mean, this is to me mockery of some kind. you're looking at one of the ugliest buildings ever constructed on a campus, where the buildings are very, very nice. It does have a nice old college feel, where one of the buildings that they had owned was probably one of the nicer buildings that ever existed in the United States. And this was the piece of shit that they put in its place. It does scream mockery. I don't think this would be, well, we live in a reality script. The reality script can do whatever it wants and on its own. Who knows who was in on it? It is a form of mockery, no matter what level of the org chart pulled this off. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Now, going back to the Folsom Library, people say, Matt, I bet the story doesn't end there. Yep. Do you think the story ends here? I'll give you 3 guesses, but you're only going to need 1. Of course, the reality script is going to keep delivering the same bullshit. Not only is the building one of the ugliest things of all time, of course, as you go down here, you see, here's another. This has to be part of the script, the Great Fire. We'll get back to that. That always has to be part of this reality script that delivers like this. It's got the same 2 cue cards it shoves in everybody's hand. Goes back here, and where is it? Okay, there's problems, of course, with this construction. Controversy over construction. Of course, it's not just, good enough in the reality story that it's an absolute disgusting looking building, but there's controversy. There's controversy in the location. Then, of course, construction begins. And I'll give you 3 guesses, you're only going to need 1. Do you think there's any problems with the construction? Of course, that has to be part of the script. There existed an additional delay 1 year after the decision was made on the location and the size of the building. In 1972, James C. Andrews, the director of libraries at the Institute at the time, issued a report pointing out weaknesses in the recently reaffirmed proposal for construction. All these problems, they cut down it from 5 floors to 4 floors. They use in-place concrete pouring to have the concrete exterior match the chapel. Just a bunch of bullshit. To me, here we go, at the bottom, construction errors. After the initial pouring of the concrete for Folsom Prison Library, it was noticed that the concrete contracted significantly to the point that more concrete had to be poured in order to make the floors level and to be able to properly install book stacks and pornographic magazine racks. Guys, look, every little person at the university wasn't in on anything. I don't know any other way to explain this. These themes repeat over and over and over again for those of us that have been looking at this for 10 years. We could have predicted that, of course, not only you take one of the great, most incredible buildings of all time goes away, in its place is put one of the biggest piece of shit buildings ever built on a college campus. And of course, to continue the theme that somehow reality delivers, there's going to be all sorts of problems, construction problems, delays. Of course, you could have predicted it. Now, the person that poured the concrete wasn't in on anything. You understand how this works? The people that are closed source entities, or the NPCs, or whatever, closed source entities, the overall master arching reality needs to run a script. And it will run a script through its people and its minions and its NPCs without the people being aware of how they're facilitating what the reality wants. Sorry to turn it into that again, guys, but this is another glaring example. Okay? Not secret societies that coordinated this. They're just going to mock again. Nope, doesn't work anymore. In many cases, the reality script has a very limited choice of cue cards, and it likes to throw this card down all the time. How many times have we seen this? Here we go. The Great Fire. In 1862, sparks from a passing locomotive on the Rensselaer and Saratoga Railroad Bridge caused a massive, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, caused a massive fire that wiped out a large portion of the entire city of Troy and the majority of the RPI property. It talks about relocation and construction of the library. So in 1862, sparks from a passing locomotive. That's it. That's all it took to cause this. Here we go. View of Troy after a massive fire which destroyed 671 buildings on May 10th, 1862. Let's play this. It's the same thing over and over and over again. So, kind of a fragile place to live, or if most of the town could be wiped out by a few sparks from it, and how would they even know? I mean, how would they even know that's what caused it? Just to think it through. It's one thing. See, that's where the reality itself gives itself away as comical, as a script, as something, as elements continuously, elements that have to keep continuously running through the themes over and over again, limited choices of elements. See, if in any real world, then okay, hey, maybe Troy had a fire. A lot of cities have had fires. Okay, there would just be, the fact that they attribute the cause, see, it just gives it away. There's no possible way sparks from a train. What about the 4,000 trains that came across that bridge before? They didn't spark. Nobody noticed any sparks from them. Did they build hay? Was whole hay assembly right under the bridge? But that railroad causes sparks. We have our whole hay factory down here, and it's all the hay's tied in and pushed right up against the city. Maybe we should move all that thousands of bushels of hay because sparks keep flying off the railroad as it comes over the bridge. It just doesn't make any sense. Fire might break out in 1860s. They wouldn't know the cause. I guess what I'm saying is the fact that the cause clearly is inserted in the Wikipedia article gives it away as something is not right. Whether it's completely fake and it was whatever damage was caused by Troy, or the fire was caused by something else, or I don't know. We'll never know. But you can go through a Wikipedia article on anything that we consider to be conspiracy, or any part of the presentation of history, for example, or the presentation of anything, even science, that just doesn't sit right in our community. And there's always a few things where it's glaring, where we point at it and say this just doesn't make sense. And what's interesting is those elements don't even need to be part of the story. It'd be far more believable from looking at it with like our eyes, the way we see the truth of this world, if it's just there's all this evidence that there was this massive fire in Troy. But then you see, let me go back to the Wikipedia. In 1862, sparks from a passing locomotive on the railroad bridge. Just to insert, they don't need to insert the ludicrous. The reality almost has to insert the ludicrous. This is an inflated tire, in my opinion, at the bottom of the WTC. It doesn't have to. You don't need to put no inflated tire there. The building coming down is kind of a big deal. That's typically enough to convince people. So whenever it pulls bullshit off, there's always something there for us. There's probably a lot of documentation. Matt, you can go into the historical records of buildings of Troy, and it'll tell you all about the fire. And there probably was a big fire. Whatever. Maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't. But I'm just saying, there's no reason to have some ridiculous cause inserted into the official story, unless it's the same thing. If it presents bullcrap, it also has to present an inflated tire. It also has to give us a way to see through it. And this isn't as absurd as the inflated tire. Of course it's not. But sparks from a locomotive, well, hasn't that bridge had hundreds of locomotives a week go over it? And any sparks that'd be flying off, someone would say, well, we should move the straw and the wood under the building. You see those sparks flying? It's bullcrap. The main point, it doesn't need to be here. It doesn't need to be here. It's part of how the reality itself, in my opinion, has to do business. Now, does anybody think that was the end of the story? Because one conspiracy will lead to the next, and it will get stranger and stranger and stranger, and it takes more and more years in looking at this stuff to accept some of the things I'm about to present as not completely as insane. But most of you will see where I'm going here. It never ends, and we live in some sort of a matrix script. So here I'm at the rpiuniversity.edu archives, and this huge-ass building that eventually they even purchased, like we talked about, in their archives, they only have one picture of the building, and you're looking at it. One little page about the Troy University building. Just one little page, it's a part of their whole history up there on the hill, and, why would you have, Obviously, guys, that we're looking at this building from a distance, but you would agree with me that this building is incredible, absolutely incredible. If there were any close-up pictures of its spires and its sheer size and magnitude, there's no question about that. Why would Troy even put any efforts into finding all the old photography or anything more about the building than one little crappy page? But here's where I'm going with this. The Troy University building was erected on Mount Ida, on property formerly owned by Jacob D. Vander Hayden. The building, designed by Edson and Engelbert of New York, was opened in 1858. This is the key, this sentence. The huge Byzantine structure with 4 tall spires rising from the central portion was an imposing figure on the landscape of Troy. All right? The university floundered and after 4 short years closed its doors at Hogwarts. Sold to St. Mary's Church. Okay, let me repeat that again. The huge Byzantine structure with 4 tall spires rising from the central portion was an imposing figure on the landscape of Troy. Let's go over to Wikipedia. So here's the Wikipedia entry. This is where we get into Wikipedia entries are not written by, we just think, oh, people, right? They're written by bots, in my opinion. Most of these are written by bots. You go to Troy University, New York. You go down to the bottom, and look what we find. The huge 4-story building with its 4 tall spires and Byzantine architecture was an imposing feature on the Troy skyline until it was razed in 1969. Okay? The huge 4-story building with its 4 tall spires over here. The huge Byzantine structure with 4 tall spires rising from the central portion was an imposing figure on the landscape of Troy. The building, the huge 4-story building with its 4 tall spires and Byzantine architecture. The huge Byzantine structure with 4 tall spires was an imposing figure on the landscape of Troy. Was an imposing feature. Okay, is it feature over here as well? Was an imposing figure on the landscape of Troy. Over here was an imposing feature on the Troy skyline. Do you see how these are absolutely related? So the bot, in my opinion, the bot over here at Wikipedia, it knows, well, Matt, somebody could have found and simply cut and paste. I don't think so, guys. It doesn't, if you're going to, a human being, if you were going to plagiarize this page at rpi.edu, would pretty much plagiarize it, or just take some notes and rewrite about it. It's not the exact sentence, but from like a bot perspective, it's so close. I don't know if you guys want to spend, I want to spend a few minutes on this, I think. I'm going to do this a few more times. We have huge 4-story building with its 4 tall spires, and we have the word Byzantine architecture. Huge 4-story building. We have huge Byzantine structure with 4 tall spires rising from central portion. Imposing figure. And we have imposing figure in the landscape of Troy. And we have over here an imposing feature, not on the landscape of Troy, on the Troy skyline. So guys, yes, if somebody's screaming at me, Matt, this is how a Wikipedia writer would plagiarize without being exact. They don't want any plagiarization issues or whatever. Why not just plagiarize it and say they got it from rpi.edu? I mean, it's so close. It screams bot to me. It really does. We would have tens and hundreds of millions of Wikipedia entries, hundreds of millions, all written by people. And, I don't, I'm sure you could find people that write articles because they have to put up the front that real people are behind this. I think a lot of it is bot driven. And I think what we're looking at now is a symptom of how, or a symptom of how the bot does business. See how close it is, but yet not. That's what it screams out to me. And this is nothing new. When we looked at the case incidents for Italy for this thing that's going on now. Remember, I went through page after page after page of the same headline that was just massaged a little bit different and presented on different news websites all over the world, which is, it's not news websites all over the world with real people behind it. It's all coming from the Ministry of Information bot. that will massage things in the headlines a little bit different here and there to make it look like all these independent news outlets are reporting from all over the world. Where it's basically coming, it's not just coming from one room in the Ministry of Information, it's probably coming from the same damn Whopper computer. But anyway, guys, whether you saw eye to eye to me with this or not, it really doesn't matter. You probably agree with most of my take on the rest of this bizarre case of Troy University, opened for not even 4 years. And let's just close out by going to this ridiculous picture one more time. You're going to build a castle. Well, to get the funding for that, are you sure we'll get the enrollment? Remember what it said, 13, if anybody's caught that. 13 final students. They couldn't even graduate with Thornton Mellon as guest honorary diploma given to Thornton Mellon, the way Bill Cosby was given an honorary degree from Temple University. The 13 number, obviously, the occult significance with that number. And is anybody going to build a castle that is going to end up being a university without an assurance of some kind about enrollment and students? And you could probably get at least 20 or 30 or 40 years out of it. I mean, just goes under in 3.5 years. But we're told some major inflationary problem of the period, but we don't see any other problems with any of the other major overbuilt universities all throughout the Northeast. All of them just made it out the other side just fine. It's a bunch of bullshit. Thanks for watching and listening. I can't resist. Remember that theory about if you trace the initial conversation back and how that would have gone, like all of reality breaks down. You can do it again with this. You can do it again with everything. So back in 1950-something, the RPI board of trustees and the provost and president said, you want to replace that with this. Let me get this straight. You want to replace that with this. Okay. And somebody not only made the decision to go forward with that to this, they spent the money just 10 years prior to buy that, and then just 10 years later they tore it down to make that. That's just not possible in the real world. They went from that to this. It's like, I don't know, it's going, I guess, from Elizabeth Taylor and Cleopatra to the Elizabeth Taylor that knew Michael Jackson. It's horrible. Thanks for listening.